Also, let's make the distinction between the people and the governments, right? So I think if you were to talk about the peoples of Russia, the peoples of Ukraine, the peoples of China, the peoples of India, the peoples of Pakistan, the peoples of whatever series or sets of warring nations uh, you could imagine, I think that most of them are ready for peace and prosperity. The
Sure,
governments, on the other hand, totally different animal.
sure.
Not all of their positions are wholly unjustified, and as much as the Chinese see their government structure as not just a structure of government, but the representation of their history and continuation of the what China is. And the United States is very much the same. There's a curly head ex CIA operative that has said on a podcast recently, the United States is not the American people. It is not even the dream of the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. It is the government of the United States. Now, while I wholly disagree, I think that view is probably held by most of the people within the government of the United States. They do not see the dream of the America as the purpose of America. They see the very power structure in which they exist as what America actually is, and the only thing that actually matters, which I think is a big part of the disconnect. And it's a large.
No, well, that guy spent a little too much time in the South American jungle, I think. But anyway, he's not wrong entirely. Um, and as regarding China, the Chinese Communist Party has not been around all that long.
No, they have not. But
It's just less than a lifetime ago that they were fucking eating each other
yeah,
because the Chinese Communist Party was over.
but
So
yeah, the whole Pol Pot thing that was pretty incredible. The China's history is less about who's in power and more about survival at all costs. You got to think about the civilizations. You got to think about the nations in the context of their history and their value system. And I don't necessarily mean like a common religion or um, a common theology, philosophy. I mean, like, how did they behave? And some of it's even reflected in their language. Uh, Grammatically, the Chinese language differs significantly from English. Uh, what they prioritize in their language is it's extremely succinct, right? So they don't go on elaborating flowerily like the Americans or even the Spanish do. In the Spanish, it's actually their focus linguistically is significantly different than English as well. But historically, they're a much more succinct, less flowery, more survivalist kind of mindset. They're not playing with ethereal nonsense. They've got some deep philosophy historically within their culture, but operationally, they're survivalists, and they've survived a hell of a lot. Essentially, a constant onslaught from the Japanese since the beginning of time, since time immemorial, and then within their own borders, the wars all the way up to the what was it the was it Ping the emperor, the first emperor to unite China? I'm not 100% on that.
I'm not that well versed.
Yeah, I think that was only in like the 1400s. No, 700. So they warred like all the way up to 700, and they've had essentially internal civil wars for their entire existence, plus external forces up to and including something requiring a force so terrifying it required a wall seen from space to survive. And then you got the Japanese on the other side, and the Koreans trying to consistently grind them into a goddamn pulp. So it's been a long, hard road for the 5,000 years that has been China. They've got a different view on the world than we do. Americans are still young, sassy teenagers, born in war and bathed in blood. So we've had incredible prosperity for a very short period of time and haven't really had the tempering or test of time that most of the other rest of the world has seen. So our perspective is significantly different. The Russians have also had a long, brutal, bloody history. And their perspective on the world is incredibly different than ours. We see them as similar only because they
But
lead to uninformed eyes.